This is easily the most hyped keyboard from the past year. This is called the Wooting 60HE. Most traditional mechanical keyboards, when you press down on a switch, it's either on or it's off. But this uses magnetic Hall effect switches. Each of the switches has a tiny little magnet in them, and when you press down on the key, it changes the voltage and the electrical signals and science stuff. And I learned this stuff in school. I don't remember what any of it means anymore. The point is, this keyboard knows how deep you're pressing each key, and that allows it to do things that a normal mechanical keyboard can't do. For example, if you find the keys on your keyboard too sensitive and you keep accidentally mistyping, you can change the actuation distance so that you have to press the key deeper in order for it to register a key press. In certain games, your keys will act as pressure sensitive triggers, so like pressing deeper on a key will make you run faster, pressing it softly will make you run slower. It also has a feature called rapid trigger, where the instant you lift your finger off a switch, it cuts the input. Normally you have to lift your finger up to like the halfway point before the keyboard knows that you've let go of a switch, and that makes the keys feel way more responsive. At least that's what the marketing material says. I don't know if you can actually feel that in game. I don't want to repeat what every single other reviewer has already said about this keyboard. Go and watch Optimum Tech's video. He's got a great video on this. Some of you might know, but I have a very unhealthy obsession with custom mechanical keyboards. This is my Echo 65. There's just nothing that beats the sound and feel of a cold block of aluminum on your desk. But what if you could take the magnetic Hall effect technology from the Wooting and combined it with the premium feel of a custom keyboard? It's been 2 weeks and I hope that transition looked cool. I spent a whole day modding the Wooting, trying to make it sound and feel as good as one of my other custom keyboards. I have some thoughts, but first let me tell you some of the mods I did to this. First, this is now sitting in a heavy aluminum case. One of the things that people really love about the Wooting is that you can just take the insides of it and shove it into another case. This is the Tofu 60 Redux from KBD Fans. It's basically just a chunk of aluminum. It even comes with an aluminum brass weight and foam. If you want to perform this mod, you need to A, be a millionaire or be financially irresponsible, because this is a really expensive mod. But then take the keycaps off, unscrew the PCB, and then screw it into the new case. But before that, I wanted to do a few things to make the keyboard sound and feel better. For one, we're not going to be using these keycaps. I have some special ones that we'll talk about later. And then took the switches out, which is pretty easy. You just use a switch puller, pull the switches out, and then you can separate the PCB from the plate. They're actually screwed together, so you got to flip it over and then unscrew the screws at the bottom. And with everything taken apart, the next step is to prepare to hate your life for the next 3 hours, because we're going to be taking apart every single switch and then lubing the insides. You can use a switch opener to make this really easy. You just press into it and then the switch comes apart, and then you can grab your favorite lube of choice. I'm using Krytox 205 grade 0. You can just get that on AliExpress. I'll leave that down below. Every switch has 4 parts, so starting with the springs, I threw all of them into a tiny tub, drizzled a little bit of lube in them, and then shook it up. Then using a small brush, I just painted a little bit of lube on the stems and the bottom housings. Top housings, I just left drying. Now you can put all the parts back together and you have one lubed switch. Now do it 60 more times, okay? It's super boring, but just give yourself like 3 hours, and trust me, it's gonna be totally worth it, I think. Or maybe it's not, and this is totally cope and I just wasted all of my time. I also replaced the stock stabilizers with these. They're called Everglide Pandas. I don't know what it's with the keyboard community. They have like these such exotic names for their keyboard parts. It's just a wire. I lube the wires and the housings of these to get rid of the annoying rattle every time you hit your space bar or your backspace. Finally, I got these tiny little switch pads from KBD Fans. They're like these tiny little squares that you put underneath every switch, and that's supposed to give the switches a deeper, thockier sound. For real, keyboard people, you guys are mega cringe, dude, with your made-up words.
Thwompiest keyboard.
One of the fucking thwompiest.
I was worried that the extra thickness of the stickers would interfere with the operation of switches. I tested it, it's totally fine. But with that done, you can finally put the keyboard back together. I decided to keep the plate foam, so I screwed the PCB and the plate back together, put the switches back in. Now, interestingly enough, these switches can be inserted into the PCB in any orientation. On a normal key switch, they've got these pins, so you can only put them in the PCB one way. But these switches don't have any pins, so you can put them in upside down if you want. which I decided to do to avoid north-facing interference. North-facing interference is a thing with keycaps, and then switches and it collides with housing, and then it makes a plastic noise. You guys stopped caring like 5 minutes ago, so I don't feel like explaining it. You can go watch a video in it. Finally, we can take the whole PCB assembly and put it in that aluminum tofu case. Now, I won't be screwing the PCB down. Instead, I'm gonna be doing something very special. The gummy O-ring mount. Guys, you're gonna tell all your friends about all this new keyboard terminology that you've learned today. They're gonna think you're so cool. You're gonna get like laid like twice by the end of today. It turns out you can take a big rubber O-ring, stretch it around the PCB, and just friction fit it into the case, and that will give you a different typing feel and sound. I didn't think this was gonna work, but it fit perfectly and it doesn't fall out at all. But the whole keyboard assembled, all that's left to do is to put in the keycaps. Now, I got these semi-transparent keycaps from AliExpress, much higher quality than the stock keycaps. But there we go, that's the complete build. Let's do a quick sound test to compare the stock sound with this new modded sound. So what do I actually think about the Wooting? Do I recommend that you buy this keyboard? Maybe? If you look up reviews for the Wooting, I swear every single person is getting all bricked up over this keyboard, saying things like, if you use this keyboard, you will instantly have an advantage over the competition, and this is the fastest gaming keyboard ever. But I gotta be honest, I barely noticed the difference. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a really solid keyboard. I love everything that Wooting is doing. I mean, the tech they put in this keyboard is really impressive. It is truly different to basically every keyboard out there. I mean, Razer has their own implementation of Rackman Trigger, same with SteelSeries. You're gonna see more gaming companies come out with this kind of tech. I just think that the difference is gonna be a lot more subtle for the vast majority of people. I mean, sure, it could just be a skill issue and I'm too shit at games to notice a huge difference, and that's totally fair. I'm not gonna claim to be the best Apex player ever, but I would consider myself to be slightly above average, and I just didn't feel that night and day difference that everybody else seems to be having. Can I put this down? This is fucking heavy, bro. Of course, your experience might be totally different. I will say for rhythm games, I did notice the switches felt slightly more responsive. I did a 17-minute twice medley in Stepmania, and I instantly got my second highest score on the first try. But honestly, even that could have just been a placebo. Look, I know there's so many pro Apex players and pro Osu players who swear by this keyboard. I'm not saying this is a bad keyboard, because there's a lot to love about the Wooting. I love the software. You just go to the Wootility website, plug your keyboard in, change your settings, they save to your keyboard, you can take it to another keyboard, has the exact same settings, and you don't have to have like Synapse running in the background, sucking up resources for no reason. And I truly think Rapid Trigger is the future of gaming keyboards. For however small the improvement might be, it's still an improvement, and we're going to be seeing this tech in more gaming keyboards going forward. We've already seen it with Razer and SteelSeries. Everyone else is going to be doing this. I just want you guys to temper your expectations. This is not a cheap keyboard, especially if you're going to do all of the mods that I did. If you're going to be spending $200+ on a gaming keyboard, it better be leaps and bounds better than the keyboard you already have. And I just didn't feel like it lived up to that expectation. Like, as a performance gaming keyboard, this is a very, very good keyboard. As a custom keyboard, it's probably average to mediocre. I had a very difficult time getting these switches to sound and feel amazing. No matter what I did, the switches feel kind of mushy and the sound was honestly disappointing. Like, this keyboard cost me $80 to build, and it honestly sounds much better than the Wooting. I feel if you were to take all of the money that you'd spend to build this keyboard and just put it towards a custom keyboard, you're gonna notice the better typing feel and sound much more than you're gonna appreciate the slight improvement in response times of the Wooting. But hey, maybe I'm just too shit at games and it's totally my fault. So if you feel like you would benefit from the high performance tech inside this keyboard and you got your heart set on it, then go buy it. You don't have to listen to me. So yeah, I know it sounds like I'm being hypercritical about the Wooting. It is a very good keyboard. I just think everyone needs to calm down. You don't need a $200 keyboard to play games good. If your goal is to improve and get better at games, you could probably do that much cheaper by upgrading your mouse, upgrading your monitor, or I don't know, practicing. Have better game sense, not being a shitty teammate. As a side note, Wooting did also start selling their own aluminum case and different plate options. I do hope Wooting plans to sell those keyboards pre-assembled, because I gotta be honest, it feels kind of wasteful to just take the plastic case that it comes with and just chuck it out. But overall, I really do like the Wooting. It just won't be replacing my custom keyboard anytime soon.